I didn't do it.
Okay, whenever you guys are ready.
Okay, we're good.
I'll shut up.
Have you ever been in a police lineup? I have.
Yeah.
I was in
Yeah?
a police lineup, yeah.
Oh, wow. All right.
Oh, yeah.
I guess we're just, and then we'll talk with them anyway. Welcome today. Today is sometime in August 12th, I think, Monday, and we welcome two Veterans for Peace from London, from Britain, from England, and welcome to Iowa City, and welcome to America, and all this good stuff. And just invite you to talk about your being here and what your message is, but maybe we'll talk about first your personal history a little bit and yours, and then we'll get into some of the more issues you want to talk about.
Okay, John. So I suppose, I grew up in the UK, believing that Britain was a good country, believing that we got involved in noble wars, like wars for freedom. I remember reading comic books when I was a kid about how we defeated the Nazis and watching films on a Sunday afternoon. And a lot of my family were in the military too, so by the time I got into senior school, there was something called the Army Cadet Force, which is like a youth military wing. And I joined that at 13, and then my path was pretty much set from there. I was going to join the military. Soon discovered when I was in the Army Cadet Force that you don't need any qualifications to join the Army. So I always had that as a sort of thing. It's like, it doesn't really matter what I do at school, I'm going to be able to join that. So I joined the military at 19, and I was in for 8 years. But I suppose the thing that really enlightened me to the true nature of things was my service in Iraq.
Would you give your name and your home, where you're from?
Yeah, sure. My name's Ben Griffin. I'm from London.
And maybe what schools you went to, and then we'll talk about Iraq as soon as.
Sure. I just went to like normal state school,
Okay, so you went to normal school. Okay, so if you want to talk about Iraq.
Okay, yeah. So I was in.
We'll get to you.
Yeah. I was in a joint US-UK special operations team working out of Baghdad. And our job was to, on the face of it, was to detain what we called high-value targets. And,
Talk about high value, what that means. What does that mean?
Yeah, okay, so a high-value target is supposedly someone who's deeply involved in the insurgency, someone who's either in charge of it, supplying it, supplying funds, or planning it. So someone who's at a high level, not just the guy at the street throwing the bombs,
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, so over the couple of months I was over there, we were using explosives to make our way into people's houses and detaining all the males there. And I started to think, like when you're going into these people's houses night after night, and I was looking at the way the women and the children were looking at us and starting to think, how would I like it if someone did this to me? How would I feel if at 2 o'clock in the morning 20 guys blew their way into the house and took my dad away, or took my brother away? And also a lot of the guys we were picking up, they weren't the people we were looking for, which was kind of confusing because we were supposedly after these very specific people, but when we didn't find them, we just took these other people. And these guys would end up in these prisons, and we already knew about Abu Ghraib at that time, so we knew what was going on inside these prisons. And I just started to feel real bad about what I was involved in out there.
Mm-hmm. You had your conscience was bothering you.
Yeah.
And that was right along when you saw that. What would it be like for me if someone came in and took my dad? So that was a transformation. It was a deep moment there.
Yeah, so I got sent home on some leave, and every day because I was a career soldier, I'd been in for 8 years at that time. That was my 7th operational tour.
7?
Yeah. And I'd been in for a long time, and I fully expected to be in for 22 years. And every day I'd get up when I was on leave, and I would think all day about the decision I was going to make, because I could have handed in my paperwork and, I think I'd have had to have done about another 18 months. But I was thinking during that, I couldn't live with myself if I continued to do this. Once you realise something is wrong, then you haven't got an excuse. Before that point, you didn't realise what you were doing wrong, right? So I went to see my CO, and I said to him, look, I'm not going back to Iraq. And I'd already told my girlfriend, I'm probably going to be put in prison or put in the jail tonight. And he looked at me and he said, oh, well, we'll have to sort this out, so come back into work tomorrow. And that was the start of how I got out of the army. Within 2 months, I'd been released from army service.
Did you talk to friends or anybody that you had trust in that helped you come to that clarity?
No, I mean, I spoke to my girlfriend at the time about it, but she was very conscious in not wanting to make a decision for me, you know. She didn't want to try and influence me either way because she thought that it was such an important decision that I'd have to, you know, she wouldn't want that hanging over her that she'd somehow, whichever way I went, you know. So I didn't, it was pretty much a decision I made on my own.
You didn't talk to any clergy or anything like that?
No, I was sort of agnostic stroke atheist when I was in the military, yeah.
All right, so you arrived at this on your own. It's really quite a moment.
Yeah.
And in 2 months you were out?
I was discharged from the army within 2 months, yeah.
Was it what kind of discharge, or did they treat you well? Or?
Yeah, I was treated very well by the military, yeah. I mean, I'd been in for quite a long time and I had a lot of respect from the guys, and I think they realised, you know, this is the real deal. And the CO who processed me through this, he'd actually come out to us in Baghdad and given us a briefing one night where he said he was worried we were becoming the secret police of Baghdad. So if this is your commanding officer saying stuff like this, you know, he's thinking too. So yeah, so I didn't really start to get in any trouble until I got out of the military, and then I felt this obligation. I was watching the TV, watching the reports coming back from Iraq, and I was thinking, this isn't anything like what's going on over there. This isn't the real story. And I felt this duty to start telling people what the true story was. And I would get taken in for interviews by the MOD telling me, you've got to stop doing this. And in the end, in 2000...
Where's MOD now?
Ministry of Defence, yeah. It's like the DOD.
Oh, so they'll be pulling you in and saying, you can't be doing this?
Yeah, and they sent me threatening letters. And they
give you a lot of hassle?
Yeah, they said to me, they got all my former comrades into a room and told them to delete my phone number, that no one was allowed to speak to me on the phone, and that I wasn't allowed back in the camp anymore, but I didn't really want to go back there, so...
Oh, no.
Yeah. So in 2008 it came to a head, and I was taken to the Royal Courts of Justice in London, and they, in a secret trial, they gave me a lifetime injunction.
A lifetime injunction in a secret trial. Did you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much says it all, really. They didn't let anyone in to see what was going on, and they gave me this lifetime injunction, which is based on a contract I signed when I was in the military. It says that I'm not allowed to speak about anything I know as a result of my service in Special Forces.
Now, this is why you're in or after you're out?
This is what after I got out, yeah, 3 years.
After you're out, and they pulled you back in and said you have a lifetime injunction, you can't speak about anything?
They took me to the main civilian court in the UK, the Royal Courts of Justice, or the Royal Courts of Injustice, as I like to call them.
Very good, very good. So you have this, all right, so you get a gag order, you're never supposed to speak. So how did you see through that?
Well, you know, for a while I was doing stuff under the, you know, behind the scenes. So like, I'd help out people who wanted to know more about the detail of what was going on over there, to help them to make films or write books and all this sort of stuff. But then, you know, that same obligation that I felt when I first got out just wouldn't go away. You know, I really felt that I needed to tell people about this. But also, you know, when I walk around the streets and I see kids, and I think, I don't want them to fall for the same bullshit that I fell for. And I feel a real sense of obligation to tell these kids about my own experiences. Because when I go into school sometimes and I ask them, how many people have played Call of Duty, this really violent computer game, they all put their hands up. So they're all being fed this false picture of what warfare is really about. And I don't want my kids going to war, and I don't want anyone else's kids going to war.
Are these kids being programmed to be the next operators of the electronic battlefield?
Well, you know, the military's got a problem because when I was a kid, we spent most of our time outdoors. We did had physical lives, and modern kids don't lead those same lives. So you've got to find a way of utilising them within the military. And a drone is a pretty suitable platform for them. You know, they're used to playing on these computer games, so it's...
They're just all set up programmed.
Yeah, they're set up ready to go, yeah.
Did you find it kind of a huge irony, maybe even Shakespearean-wise, that the CO, your commanding officer, and the CO now becomes conscientious objector, that CO commanding officer and then the CO of conscientious objector almost within the same breath? You know, you have the CO, and then you become a conscience subject. I just find that interesting.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
The term having different meanings of that are pretty high in both worlds.
Got you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're a CO.
No. When I got out of the military, my main problem was the war in Iraq. And I've found since that most soldiers are radicalised, if they are radicalised, by the war they fight in. But it was only after a long time that I started to look at all the other wars and think, wait a minute, they were all just the same. You know, I grew up reading these biased histories of these wars, and when I started to reinvestigate them, they were exactly the same as the war in Iraq. So at the time, I wasn't a conscientious objector because I wasn't objecting to war per se. I was objecting to that war, you know.
Okay.
But over time, I developed an objection to all war, you know.
Did you find any of this when you started pulling back and reading new assessments? Did you find any particular books or authors that helped you understand different?
I think Howard Zinn gave some very good lectures on the internet that I've seen more recently. One is about the 3 holy wars of America. So the War of Independence, the Civil War, and the Second World War. And if you can drive a skewer through those wars, which are seen as like almost idealised, that's really helpful to see those wars sort of pulled apart to show their true nature. So I found that really interesting, the Howard Zinn lectures on those 3 holy wars. Yeah,
yeah, I consider Howard Zinn one of the great lights of our time. I saw him personally myself here in Iowa City, and it was a great honor to... He himself was a veteran bomber in World War II, and
sure.
He had a conscience about that. He said there's no good war. Howard Zinn, so thank you for... Anyone else that you want to...
No, I think I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, leave it at that one. That's a good one. Okay, so maybe we'll shift a little bit and we'll get back to what you want to talk about. And here we are with yourself, and you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah,
First of all, welcome to Iowa City.
Thanks for having me. I'm Michael Lyons. I joined the Navy at the age of 18 for 2 main reasons. One of them was economic conscription.
Right.
But I'd left my job, I'd left school, about 17. I knew I wanted to help people, but I was at a school where nobody really went on to college, or nobody went on to be a doctor or a nurse from there.
They didn't have any money.
Yeah, pretty much. It was right in the middle of a council estate. Yeah.
So you're coming out of... Go ahead.
So, yeah, and then also at the same time there was this advert running for Navy Medic, in which the protagonist jumps out of this helicopter to deliver humanitarian aid to this far-flung stretch of the corner of the world. I think because the year before they'd sent a Navy destroyer after tsunami and thrown a few boxes over there.
Oh, okay.
So they now said that's part of what we do.
Yeah.
This is exactly what you will do if you join up as a medic. And you don't need any good grades to get in. You don't need, we'll pay you straight away. That sort of thing will give you a place to live. So, that made me want to join.
I think that's pretty powerful motivation. You're speaking to a large group of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who do join because economic conscription. And it gives them a chance to have a better life in education or go to college.
Yeah, someone I knew in military prison got recruited. He was unemployed, his mum was ill. He was in town in the middle of the day like most people who are unemployed are, and there was this big army demonstration thing. They had like a climbing wall, they had videos, people dressed up smartly, and they go, oh, you know what, if your mum's ill, she'll be so proud if you join the military.
Oh my
you'll
God.
earn this much money, you won't earn that if working in Tesco's or Walmart.
Yeah.
And women love a guy in uniform, and you tell an 18-year-old that he's going to get
That's
girls
pretty compelling.
money and
Like your mom will respect you.
exactly.
I mean, think about that. I mean, that's family.
Yeah.
So the uniform, so all the compelling, at the time it fit what maybe was missing.
Yeah. That's the main reason I joined.
And if you wanted to join the medics,
Yeah, I wanted to be a medic, so I joined as a medic on submarines.
on submarines. Talk about that, would you please?
Yeah, I was on the Trafalgar class submarines, so I did all my training with that. Did a few sea trips. Got awarded my dolphins. Got promoted because it is sort of an automatic promotion, but you still have to jump through all the hoops, pass all the courses. And I passed all those without any issues. And the whole time I was in like the military bubble, where the only people you know and hang out with are military. You live on a military base. You drink in military towns, so you don't get any news outside of it. You don't get any different opinions as such.
No, you're inside of that military mind, and you're in that mind almost all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you get a chance on the weekends or something to go downtown?
Yeah, go downtown most nights. But again, it's a military town. And something that happens, you do lose touch with people back home, just because, especially at the beginning, you can't get home that often. And when you do, you've changed a lot, but it seems like everyone else.
I was going to ask you, Dad, does it change your psyche? You've changed a lot, so I'll just let you go with that.
Yeah, I mean, part of the military training is to change you, is to change the way you think, change your priorities as well. So
you're not the same person.
No. You're depending on the different militaries and different specializations do it in different ways. So some of the more hardcore infantry special side of things, they really change you. So the Navy, not so much, but it does turn you into someone who, for instance, thinks ironing his trousers is the most important thing that they have to do that day.
What is?
Ironing your trousers.
That's true.
So if you prioritize that over everything else, that's how they get you to follow orders blindly.
Do you have to have your shoes really shine too?
Yeah, ridiculously.
And did you put crazy freaking crap on there to make them shine? I don't know. So this aside. This silliness, all right. So being in this nuclear submarine, right? So that's cramped quarters. Did you have to psychologically adjust to that?
No, I was kind of okay with it because, as I say, you're kind of just used to doing what you're told. It's really cramped under here, but it's not like we can get out.
Okay, so now here you are. You're finding now you got your dolphin or whatever. I don't know the terms, but you get your dolphin or something like that.
Yeah.
And so now you're out on your first permanent base or something. Where do you go?
No, I was attached to a submarine, so wherever it went, I went. For a couple of years. We didn't do anything like a couple of years back in Libya. They had one of the Trafalgar class shooting cruise missiles into Libya. We didn't do anything like that.
Okay.
I like to think if that had happened, maybe I'd have started questioning things.
Right.
But ours was more sort of mundane stuff.
Just cruising around?
Sort of gathering intelligence, but we didn't really know, as a medic, you didn't really know, essentially.
No.
You drove it, you did the medical side of things.
Were you in the Mediterranean, or were you in...
Sort of all round, off the coast of Africa, Mediterranean, a bit in the Atlantic, North Sea, that sort of thing.
So
we got around.
You got around. And how long were you in before you hit port somewhere?
It varied.
Yeah.
Sometimes 6 weeks, sometimes 2 or 3 months.
Wow, 6 weeks.
Yeah. But then after that, because I got a really good report from my divisional officer, I was sort of given what is seen as a very nice draft to Diego Garcia.
Okay.
My wife didn't see it as that good a draft because it meant I'd be away for 6 months.
Right. Now, Diego Garcia, that's way down south somewhere.
It's in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
It's a little atoll in what is known as the British Indian Ocean Territory.
Okay.
So I was customs there, and that was where I really started to question things. I looked at, we had the Chagosians, who were the inhabitants up until the 60s when they were thrown off the island by the British so that they could make a military base there. They came over, and some of them had been kids at the time. So they came over to tour the islands, clean up some of the graveyards where they had relatives buried. And as a medic, I was taken on med cover. So I'd be talking to them, learning their stories and stuff. And that's when I started to think, maybe we weren't the good guys. Maybe we weren't just out there fighting terrorists, that there was an imperialism thing behind it. And especially at the time, because that whole area was used as plantations for the coconut trade. So you can see that firsthand, and the hand of imperialism. A lot, was done a lot by the military. That's how it was fortified. And then the modern day treatment of the Filipinos who work over there for $300-400 a month, when we were given $750 a month. Not as pay, that was on top of our pay, on top of our sea pay, our specialisation pay, cash in hand, just for food and beer. So
How much did you get paid?
It was $750 a month on top of the $2,000, $2,500 maybe
Oh.
$3,000 because it was a sea
Okay.
draft.
That's
Um,
being well paid.
Very well paid for doing a lot less work than the Filipinos.
And you could see that this was a plantation.
Yeah, it still had some of like the old masters' houses and the old huts and stuff. They were all falling apart, so it was quite spooky.
And why did Britain consider Diego a strategically positioned place or something?
Yeah, we didn't really learn about the reason. It was strategic. Yeah, and it's mainly a US base. I think there was 40 British personnel. So that made me question things. And then on my return to England, I received a draft order to Afghanistan.
Ooh.
Yeah, as a medic. But because, like I said, you're so used to just following orders, blind sense of duty that's bashed into you from day one. I was like, that's, it's part of my job. I'd known people who'd gone out there, while I was a bit apprehensive, as anyone is who's being told to go into a war zone.
Yeah.
I could see the positives. Again, money. I was going to come back with at least $20,000.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Did you have leave before you went there? Did you get your
no.
orders and then you got leave? Or did
No, because the deployment was for a year's time from when I got back. So I had a shoreside job until then.
Okay.
And had training courses to do because as a Navy medic, you're not really trained to do that.
Right. Not on land.
No. So, and then it was around that time, like a couple of months after my draft order, that Bradley Manning and WikiLeaks released everything.
What? This was, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago? Or
It was 2010.
2010, okay. 2010.
Yeah. So yeah, and I remember there was a lot on the Guardian website. So they analysed
Guardian's the greatest paper in the entire world. I swear they are.
It's okay.
It's
All
okay.
right, they're okay, so maybe we'll get it.
For the mainstream, it's all right. Yeah.
Okay.
But I have to say, they did great stuff around the initial release of the WikiLeaks stuff.
Okay.
They did lots of maps so you could see where stuff had gone, and they had a download thing for all the hard data. And that's, I lost myself in it. I was going through it all because this is something I was going to be involved with. And so, I really wanted to know, I didn't want to just close my, put my fingers in my ears and go la 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 la.
Yeah.
So, and then there was also the
Collateral murder video.
collateral murder video.
The what?
The collateral murder video,
Okay.
of the gunship taking out the journalist.
Oh my God, yeah. That's
Yeah,
terrible.
and yeah, I mean, I wept the first time I saw that.
That was just gruesome.
It was and like Ben said about the Call of Duty, the way that it looked exactly like a level on Call of Duty that I played like a year or two before, really chilled me. But
I mean,
then,
it was like a game you played?
yeah, Call of Duty. There was one level where you had, I think you were in a helicopter, and it looked exactly like that, the
So
grainy
in
black
there,
and white.
So you're already prepared to.
Well, yeah, it chilled me that it looked so similar, but this was what was happening. This wasn't sprites on a video game.
So this is like psychological preparation. Some of these games.
Yeah, desensitization.
Desensitization,
at least,
alright.
so that when people do see something like that, they don't think it's that shocking, or some people don't. I
Right.
did, and also hearing the audio track to it, the way they talk about the people down there. The callousness they have, it really shot, and that was when I knew that it was something I couldn't be a part of. I couldn't take part in that.
So
that
you were at like, where were you at? You were on a year's training time, and then you start downloading and reading all this material. And
yeah.
so you devolving conscience about that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I declared myself a conscientious objector.
So you did. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's not, even though it's the right of every soldier, sailor, and airman, nobody really knows about it because they don't tell you about it.
They don't tell you.
They don't say, oh, by the way, if you do disagree, you don't have to, because then loads of people would disagree.
I'm sorry, you're not going to hear that, are you?
No. So I had to find out about myself. I jumped through all the hoops, and because it's associated a lot with the First World War and a little bit with the Second World War, it's a very antiquated system. So even though I was an atheist, I had to speak to the chaplain about it, who I thought was just going to be tea and crumpets with the vicar, but he was just really, if anything, he was pro-war. He loved war.
Oh, wow.
He wanted everyone to go. He was a real
He was a real bastard.
Yeah, we can say that on public access.
Yeah, I think you can.
No, yeah, he was a bastard. And yeah, so it got rejected because he said because I didn't have a faith life belief system, I couldn't make moral decisions.
This is insane.
Yeah.
You didn't have a faith life, so you couldn't make moral decisions?
That was what went, because the guy who makes the decision ultimately has never met you or spoke to you.
This is your opportunity. Look in the camera, say whatever you want to that dude. And then it would return to the interview.
It might get cut.
All right, so, okay. Just think about that, people. All right, so you don't have moral.
So, and at this point, they hadn't taken me off the deployment, so I was still down to go. So they were sending me on these courses, and one of them, I went on the medical ones because they were ones I could be asked to go on if I was to deploy to see. And I'd done some of the courses before, and I was still waiting to hear about my appeal for conscientious objection.
Oh, you've already filed.
Yeah, straight away.
Yeah.
As soon as they said you're not one, I said, well, I'm appealing, because I felt I was. And at the appeal, you get to give your
Go ahead.
thing to a panel of people, so you get to properly speak to yourself, to the people who are making the decisions.
All right, go ahead.
And yeah, in between that time, they wanted me to go on a rifle course. And as a medic, you don't touch rifles out of basic.
No.
And it had been 5 years I've been in at that point. So
Right.
apart from 1 week clumsily fiddling
Yeah.
with one,
Yeah.
and somehow passing a firing test, which I'm
Right.
pretty sure they just marked pass.
Right. Yeah.
Because he's never going to touch a rifle. So I basically said, look, I'm conscientious objector, this is what's going on. It is in poor taste, and it will do my appeal no good if I go to the people and they say, what have you been doing? And I've been running around learning to kill.
No.
So I refused to go, and
You
basically...
refused to. Good for you.
And that's what they got me with, because they don't like to get you on refusing wars or active duty, because then it becomes public and stuff like that. So they got me on refusing rifle orders, and refusal of orders normally carries a 2-week sentence. However, in this instance, I got derated down from leading hand to able seaman.
You got demoted.
Got.
So how many what was it? How many? 2, 3?
I don't know what ease.
Something. Well, it's
Yeah.
just you have 1 through 9 enlisted, I guess, with different pay ranks and scales.
And dismissed and to serve a 7-month sentence in military prison.
No shit.
And my lawyer was pretty certain it would be 2 weeks at most. And then just before the sentencing hearing, she comes in and goes, so I've just spoken to the prosecution. Looks like about 6 months. And then she left.
Yeah, that was your attorney?
Yeah. And then...
So then you were then taken to prison?
Yeah, straight from there, straight in the back of a police riot van. My wife was in floods, just torn apart from her pretty much.
I bet your wife wasn't.
Yeah, I didn't really have a chance to say goodbye.
You didn't have a chance to say goodbye?
No, not
to your
properly.
wife?
No. I had, because it got into the news a little bit, there were some supporters from the local area come, and they gave me a standing ovation when I was marched out. And so that was beautiful. But yeah, then the going to prison bit wasn't so beautiful.
Oh, wow. So we'll cover a little bit of that, and then we'll get both of you. So just talk a little bit about your prison and what that was not beautiful, what your experience was, please, because you did some good thing here.
Yeah, the prison time, I had received a couple of threats beforehand that I was, going to get attacked and this, prison-style violence. But when I got there, pretty much all the other inmates who were being discharged from the service, like myself, were pretty on board.
Oh.
They could see why I did what I did. They thought I took balls to do that, so they kind of respected
You
that.
did have balls.
Thanks.
Yeah, you did. Good for you.
The guards, however, weren't so cool.
All right.
But then after a couple of weeks, one of my friends told them, spread a rumour that I was writing a book on my prison time and was going to name and shame all the guards.
Uh-huh.
So they backed off. And were
Good. That's a great.
actually
that's
quite
all right.
friendly for the rest of the time.
That's
so
very
there's
excellent.
a tip for anyone who's facing any...
Now say that again. A good tip, people. Say that. That's very important.
Yeah, just spread a rumour that you're going to write a book and name and shame any guards, and they'll back off.
And you have skills because you're medic, so they probably figure pull that off.
Yeah, yeah.
Huh. All right. So you had a community of support when you got there.
I had an amazing community of support. At this point, Ben Griffin had found out about me, and Kieran O'Reilly from the London Catholic Worker,
Okay.
and they came to visit. They got in touch, came to visit, organised vigils outside the prison.
Wow.
Yeah, it was mega. They sorted out finances for me so that my wife didn't have to, lose the flat that we were in.
That's some deep, good stuff.
Yeah, no, really, really helped out incredible amount. And I was getting letters from all over the world as well, because they've broken a lot of local news online.
Mm-hmm.
So like the Tasmanian Times, I'm sure there was a letter from Iowa.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, this is online, I'm sure, around the world.
Yeah, it was online. So yeah, just getting letters every day, and you got them at dinner time. So every day they call my name, they go,
Mail
"Lions."
is important, is it not?
So important for people who are in prison for.
Or in the military, too.
Yeah, actually, in the military.
So
Everyone loves letters.
Every lunch or noon, or you get your mail? Yeah.
Every dinner time in the evening, and they call you out. You have to go up and they have to open it, so there's no contraband. So they'd open at least a dozen every night, and there'd be loads of peace cards and sort of.
All right.
Yeah, loads of great quotes as well from people like Descartes
wow.
and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was great, and you could see their faces. They were not happy about it one bit.
But you never know, that might have plopped the seed into someone's mind, when they found this young guy. He'd only been out of the military for about a year, and he was very enthusiastic. And I went up to him and said, "Brother, have you heard about Veterans for Peace?" He said, "No, what's it all about?" And sat down, explained to him. And we ended up supporting him through his resistance at Occupy there. I've got a full-time job, so I wasn't able to really fully engage with Occupy, but we'd go down there, do his washing, buy him some cigarettes, take him for some food. And he became one of our founding members as well. So that's where it started off. And we've started to move on now and recruit more people into the organisation.
Was this Occupy at one of the St. Paul's? Or
That's it, yeah. It was fantastic.
It was, I was supporting that from afar. I know that was quite a, I don't know, there was going round and round about how long the Occupy could be there.
Well, Matthew Horn, one of our members, was there over 100 nights on the ground. Didn't miss a night. It was an interesting time because they'd gone there to occupy the stock exchange. And then the private security had blocked them from getting to the stock exchange. And just through coincidence, they ended up on the steps of the cathedral. And they decided to put up camp there. And then it started this amazing dialogue within the cathedral about what the Christian response should be to people on the streets complaining about this financial system. So it was an interesting time.
Get down to the values.
Yeah, what's this really about,
Yeah.
And it really was a line drawn, because you had some members of the church who were going pro-establishment, and you had some guys who were going pro the occupiers, and one guy even resigned over it,
Yeah, just for a second, how does Occupy, what is the status now over in around St. Paul's or in London?
Yeah, I mean, Occupy's moved on, as in they're no longer at St. Paul's. There are people, I think the main influence of Occupy was that it radicalised a group of young people who were just fed up with their situations, who came down to London, who lived in a different way for all those months, were exposed to other ideas through older activists, and it would be interesting to find out, and that would be a bigger project, to find out what those occupiers went on to do,
Yeah, I think so, because it's been a year or so now. Or
2 years, yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, so you met down here in London, and you met this young man, the joint, so are you still in prison now, or?
Yeah.
2011.
So talk about getting out and so forth.
Do you want to talk about the party and all that?
Yeah. So I was released, and I'd made up my mind before then that I wanted to train to be a doctor, with a view to working with organisations like Doctors Without Borders and the Red Cross.
Beautiful.
In war zones and third world countries, humanitarian aid essentially.
Was this evolving while you were in prison?
This, I think, from when I'd started my objection, because it took them a good year to actually get me to trial. So yeah, it'd been formulating, and so yeah, I put all my efforts into that. We moved from Plymouth, which is a very military city, down to Brighton, which is a very liberal city.
Oh.
Kind of.
Educate us. We don't know much about. So tell us where to go.
Yeah. Kind of. Yeah. It's a bit like the Madison of
Okay.
the UK. It's the gay-friendly capital of the UK.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot of. It's just a very cool town. It's
Yeah.
like the opposite of a military town. Lots of culture.
Yeah. So it's going to nurture you and support you.
Yeah. They have a regular protest outside because there's an arms manufacturer a few miles down the road. They have a regular Smash Edo thing where they make loads of noise, and it kind of reminded me of the sing-along that they've been doing in Madison.
Well, can you give us? Maybe you can't sing it, but you can give us the words they were singing up there.
What, at Madison?
Yeah.
What were they sing? Yeah, there was a lot of songs that we had to use the songbook to follow them along. Really, we didn't really know the words.
okay.
Yeah.
But what they do is they take like an old protest song and put Scott Walker in it, so
Oh, okay.
all related to the state capital. So that was really cool.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But I think it's really something, the transformation that each person is evolving through, and Conscience and Veterans for Peace, and now preparing to go to medical school for Doctors Without Borders, both noble and very high conscious. So if you want to follow that a little more, and then we'll come back to.
So yeah, and I applied for this because I'm a mature student. Have to go through an access course.
Do you have to do what?
It's called an access course, which
Okay.
is like a year of study before you get to university. So I got onto that. It's quite a competitive course, and I've passed the interview, and I got a place at the Brighton Medical School. So I'm going to start all that pretty much a month from when I get back from the States.
It's fabulous.
So it's very exciting.
Fabulous. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is the way to serve humankind. And so, will you get any courses? You've already got a lot of experience. Will you get any of that expunged so that you won't have to take, or do you have to take?
No, I've got to take the full curriculum.
You
But
have to.
I prefer it like that.
Okay.
I think any experience that I do have will only
Okay.
help.
All right. And that would be how many years will you be?
It's 1 year access, 5 years at medical school, and then 2 years as a foundation
I was
doctor.
thinking it's like 8 years. Huh?
Yeah, and my wife's also going to be studying nursing. She's got
Oh, well
that
then,
base.
wow, you both can. What a
Yeah.
natural, huh?
Yeah, so...
All right. Well, thank you for your perseverance and your service. And then you can take it wherever you want.
Yeah, I suppose thinking about Veterans for Peace statement of purpose, one of the things that we've really been concentrating on, I suppose, is to counter militarism, and it's kind of hard to define militarism, but it's basically this system and an ideology that, for a start, the military is the solution to a lot of our problems, that war is a good thing to do, that serving in the military is a good thing for your kids to do. And I suppose part of the work we do in Veterans for Peace is to in the UK and in the US as well, is to try and counter militarism. And it wasn't that long ago that racism was pretty common in the UK and in the US.
Amen.
And
Amen. Yeah.
I suppose one of our aims is to get to the point where militarism is jumped on at the same rate or with the same veracity that racism is jumped on.
Yeah.
So if you said the N-word now, right?
Yeah.
If you're in a room, I would hope that at least 5 people would come up to me and give me hassle for saying that, right?
You would, yeah.
Yeah.
It
So
just-
let's get to the point where militarism is seen as the same thing. Like, so when we see these computer games that our kids are all, it's that they should be thrown out of the shop. They should be thrown in the bin, and the people who make them should be hammered. They should be harangued in the street. Why are you making this stuff?
And even maybe frickin' gone to jail.
Yeah, or when we see soldiers, marching around our sports fields, maybe a few more people won't stand up and applaud.
Yeah.
At the minute we're reinforcing this idea that is
Very good. Yeah.
is taking us down a cul-de-sac to destruction.
Absolutely. Martin Luther King did talk about the 3 pillars of evil. One was racism,
Right.
materialism, and militarism.
I didn't know
Those
that.
are
That's
3
good.
pillars of evil that he talked about: with racism, materialism, and militarism. Now his was the Vietnam War, but what you're saying is the voice of Martin Luther King, only focusing not so much, but on the center pillar of that, which is militarism.
Yeah.
Which is inside the psyche and approved by all these different social authority figures, right?
Yeah.
If you want to say more, I think
No,
it's
I
really
think that's about it.
important.
You know, this stuff pervades our society, and I suppose the first thing we need to do, the first step, is to recognise it, is to recognise militarism for what it is. You know, and I suppose in some ways we still have problems recognising some forms of racism. They can be so subtle. You know, they talk about the dog whistle politics, don't they?
Yeah.
Where politicians are talking about stuff that is basically racism, but they don't say it outright. You know, and so
So you can't hear it.
yeah. So we need to recognise materialism where it manifests in our society and challenge that. You know, resist it and counter it and challenge it.
Yeah.
So they're not getting a free ride.
You say where it exists in our society, so like, you know, just it's pervasive, is it not? It permeates the educational infrastructure, the books, Boy Scouts, I don't know, paramilitary organizations, how the commercial television works with these ads that are paid for by the taxpayer at sporting events. If you want to talk more, I mean, they just worship.
They worship the military.
Without any criticism.
Yeah, and it's one of the things you can't criticise. They've come up with a very clever line, both in the UK and the US, where they say, you might not support this war, but you've got to support our troops. And it's kind of a hard one. On the face of it, you think, oh, they're probably right, you know. I don't agree with that war, but these are our boys on the ground there, you know. But by supporting those troops, you support what they do. And I've been there, and I know what those troops do. They destroy people's homes and infrastructure. They kill people. You know, I think out of 100,000 people who died in Iraq, 68,000 were civilians. And you know whose figures they are? They're the US military's figures. We know that from the Iraq War logs that Bradley Manning released. You know, so this is the lowest end of the estimate. If the US military is saying, you know, we killed 100,000 people and 68,000 were civilians, you know that's a low estimate. Okay, so you can't say support our troops. It's like saying, I don't know, it's almost like saying, I don't know how to phrase it, but you know, by supporting the troops, you support what they do, and we need to take more interest in what those soldiers do.
And also it sort of makes it come across as a fight of good and evil, of wrong and right, and that only our country can be right, and it just makes it a very black and white thing that there's no sort of...
It's a psychological rape of conscience. What it does is it gets people to feel that they're supporting... how does that phrase go? Because it really screws the mind up.
Yeah, well, you might not support the war, but you need to support our troops.
Right, and I think they learned that from Vietnam.
Yeah.
They learned this subtle psychological trip, say, all right, you can be against the war, but you support the troops, then you're locked in.
Yeah, and I think we need to recognise as well that a lot of what the military does is not coincidence, it's contrived. So 100 years ago, during the First World War, they realised that only a small percentage of frontline soldiers were actually trying to kill the enemy. Other guys were firing high, or they weren't firing, or they were finding other jobs to do to try and avoid the killing, right?
Yeah.
And in the Second World War, the numbers were fairly similar, you know. And post-Second World War, the American British militaries investigated how they can get their soldiers to kill. And through sophisticated forms of training that on the face of it look fairly basic.
Say that, that's very important. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what they did is that instead of firing at round targets, like a bullseye, you make the shape and the colours of an individual, of a man, to desensitise, to get people shooting at bodies, not at circles, you know. And also through repetition and sort of sophisticated forms of training, they've managed to get it up to somewhere like 90% of frontline soldiers will shoot to kill now. So they've made that huge change, and it's not by coincidence. This is contrived. And we need to look at the language that our society uses. I was in a meeting the other day, and I was listening to a very well-meaning person, but a misguided person, who was talking about post-traumatic stress disorder. And she kept on using the word warrior, warrior this, warrior that. And it was really getting to me. I had to put my hand up. And I said, you know, I find that term offensive. It gives the impression that what we were doing, what our soldiers are doing, was somehow noble. It also gives the impression, if you look at the classic definition of a warrior, there's someone who chooses the battle and then can also choose not to battle. It's someone of free will. If you look at an Indian warrior, you know, a Native American warrior, right? And these guys haven't got any free will, you know. So I asked her to stop using that term. And the thing is, when we use that term in our society, and it's a lot more prevalent in the United States, we're building a saccharine and a false view of what our soldiers do, you know. And we need to counter these words. We need to counter this language that hides the true nature of what these are.
Yeah. This like Roman icon of this golden bronze warrior, whatever that is on the statues and so forth. But it just worships the military mindset, and this warrior. Where's that coming from? But it's to cover up all of these war crimes. I mean, how much lies can we deal with here? Go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, I suppose that, you know, that's the point that I'd like to make, is that we need to start seeing militarism just like Martin Luther King. And thanks for that, John. I didn't realise that was one of his 3 pillars there.
Yeah.
But we need to see these things as just as malign, just as harmful, just as destructive, and just as false.
Right.
These are false ideologies: militarism, racism, materialism.
Right.
You know,
Right.
they dehumanise us.
Right. That's what I think. Really, when Martin Luther King was into civil rights, and then when he started looking at the Vietnam War and getting involved there, then he saw that the larger of all of humanity with the war vibe. That's when he got in trouble. As long as he was just talking about civil rights, that's okay. But once he stepped into the militarism, that's when he really took on the evil.
Yeah.
This pervasive evil that has in the war machine itself. I mean, feel free to say anything you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much covered that.
Okay.
You know, obviously it's a much bigger subject, but you know,
Okay.
maybe cover some other
and
things.
I would throw out a few things because you mentioned Bradley Manning. You know, is influencing WikiLeaks. So if you want to, I'll just throw them out: Julian Assange, Bradley Manning, and all of that WikiLeaks, because he just had his court-martial, and you know, but for the grace with there go I.
Yeah.
We're all in that together.
So, I mean, Mike, do you want to talk about that? About the work we've been doing around Manning?
So what we've been doing in London is every time he's in court, we've been outside the embassy and we've been blasting the audio track of Collateral Murder at the US Embassy.
What was the audio track?
Just where, you know, the really chilling sort of, you can hear the gunfire, you can hear them completely having no respect for the human being.
I mean, but let's say a few of those lines. You know, those helicopter pilots say, "Look at all them dead bastards." That's what their approach is to those kids on the ground. And then when someone on the ground is asking, "Can we take these children to hospital?" their response is, "They shouldn't have brought their kids to a battle." You know, this is their home. This is where they live. They weren't going to a battle. They were going to school. They didn't expect to be shot up. You know, so that's a very powerful audio track that we try to blast off the wall of the US Embassy, you know.
That's a very powerful witness, and keep it up. I hope, like you say, the walls of Jericho will come tumbling down with that trumpet you're laying down there night and day. That just is so... you're up here in this helicopter pilot and you're so psychologically desensitized and removed, and like you say, these are human beings. There's the disconnect. These are real people going to school. These are people at homes there.
Yeah.
And yet this is just ops.
Yeah.
You know, and wasn't there some deep psychological ops going on to get people to that level where they're so numbed out? It's just what you say that, what do they call them? What is that name they call them? And they're just, they gave them a name.
Oh, look at all those dead bastards.
Look at those dead bastards, and then they call it a signature. You ever heard of that one? A signature. When somebody comes back.
Oh.
When they shoot somebody and then somebody comes to...
Oh, they call it a double tap sometimes.
That's it.
Or,
there's different language.
Yeah. Well, that's what the military does. It gives you a completely different language. And language is important to our psyche. Language is important to how we relate to people. And when you use this language of death and killing and elitism, it's one of the main things that the military pushes, is the sense that we are somehow, when we're in the military, elite, apart, above.
How do we arrive at this... Okay, elevated. This is really, that's the evil right there. How do we get to that elite mind? How do they get that so that we're now elite? We're the elite, and these are nobodies or
yeah. Yeah.
And these people believe this, right?
Yeah, of course.
And we're the good, those are the bad guys.
Everyone wants to be elite. If you're being told by people that you're the best, you know, you're better than those people, and it coming from people that you respect because they've earned ranks, and they've been places, they've seen stuff, then you take that on board. And again, it supports the military bubble thing, because you learn all these different terminologies for stuff, and like when you go home and you say some of these words and people don't know what you're talking about, and you kind of feel like different, like elite, like, you know, oh, they wouldn't last 2 weeks in training or stuff like that.
Oh yeah?
And another way that these acts are being I don't know what the right word is there, but being sort of allowed to or facilitated. So you want to take someone off the street, right, and you want to torture them in a prison. How do you go about that? Well, what you do is you break down all of the little jobs into compartments, like the division of labour. And so you send a couple of guys out on a surveillance mission, and they see the people in their houses, and they see them in the family situation, picking up the kids from school, doing the shopping, coming home, right? So they carry out all the surveillance. Now, because they've been told that these guys are bad guys, everything they do becomes suspicious. So if they're digging in the garden, oh, well, they must be digging hiding some weapons, you know. If they go and visit this house and this house, oh, that's their fellow insurgents, you know. So you build up this picture until it gets to the point where you go, right, we need to detain these people. And then you hand that job over to there's many names for it, but you could call it a strike force or detention force. And they go in the middle of the night, use explosives, get in there, drag the people out. They take all the men, they leave the kids. They ransack the house and take all the computers and the money and the mobiles and, you know, whatever else they can find. And they've seen them in a different situation. They've seen them basically at the point of the shock of capture, you know, so these people are just all frightened and all the rest of it. Anyway, by the time these guys get them back to the base, they've got the cuffs on and they've got the hoods on. What does it look like to the guy who who hands them over to? They're terrorists, right? Because this is what I've been told a terrorist looks like. And then this guy processes them, and then he puts them into a prison, and then some guys come into that prison to interrogate them. Now, the thing is, the guy who does the interrogation and the torture has not seen, all the way back at the start, them in a family situation. And if one person had to do all of that work, they wouldn't do it, because they would see what this is really about. But by breaking it up into little chunks, people can rationalise their part in that role, you know, or their role in that process. Sorry.
What is it like when a person finally gets out of that, and do they ever reflect on that when they get home finally?
Yeah, I mean, you know, when I got out of the military and I hadn't been out for too long, I went to see an old friend of mine who had been in the Falklands conflict, and one of the first things he said to me when he met up with me, he said, "Oh, you know, you've got PTSD," and I still had that military mindset. I was like, "No, I haven't got that. You know, I'm fine." But I soon found out, you know, over the years that most people who've been through those situations develop, or at the time, a psychological trauma is caused that might not come out for a few years. And I think the reason it comes out is as the brainwashing and the training and the distance from the group grows, and you have time to reflect, and maybe you become a bit more human after you've left the military, you're suddenly disturbed by what you did when you were a militaristic person, you know? And so, you know, sometimes it takes a long time for these psychological traumas to actually come to the front. The thing is as soon as people get out, a lot of people have got drink problems, anger problems, violence problems, but they can't. It takes them a while to work out why it is they've got those symptoms, you know.
And like you say, I thought that was really brilliant. That as they become more human, or they get more humanized, or back into their normal being what they were before, or something, then this starts to break up. And
yeah, I mean, that's just a theory. I mean, there's a lot of theories about this.
I think it's really very real. There's a human quality that re-enters.
Yeah.
And then that sets up this other stuff that brings back, you know, this under. So my questions are, what are we doing? What can we do to help people who?
Well, you know, my own take on post-traumatic stress disorder, if you want to call it that. I mean, I don't like that name. You know, I don't like any of these names to it.
Right.
Post-traumatic stress disorder is something you have if you're in a train crash, or if you're in an air crash. Right. This is something different. This is psychological trauma caused by military training, right? When they muck around with your brain,
Yes.
caused by living in a hierarchical structure where obedience is everything,
Yep.
and then compounded by the horrors of war. And that is something more complex than being in a car crash.
Right.
It's something much more pervasive.
Much more brainwashed. And
Yeah. And so I actually think that these psychological symptoms, the psychological problems, are a human reaction to living through that shit.
Right.
And so when people talk about how we're going to cure these guys, you shouldn't be cured. You know, you should feel guilty about killing people. You should feel guilty about your role in someone's torture.
Right.
You know, and it causes you great psychological trauma. But that's what you've got to live with because you played a part in that. You know.
Right. Right.
So this whole idea about curing people, I tell you how we prevent it.
Okay.
We stop recruiting our kids into the military,
Right.
and we stop sending them to these wars.
Amen.
Because going through those process of being in the military and going to war is what causes this psychological damage.
Right.
And it's just as bad for the people who have to live under it. You know, I dread to think the psychological damage that's been caused to kids and young adults and you know, human beings in Iraq and Afghanistan, you know. But that's not a problem for us, you know.
And also, actually, even here, it does a lot of damage because it's not even mentioned. It's kind of washed off any TV news or anything. It's just kind of put over here. You don't hear much about it. And because we don't pay attention to it and so forth, by omission, it's as great a crime of not giving it its due, whatever that whole matrix is.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the media, they like to focus on physical injuries, you know.
Yeah.
There'll be the brave guy who's had his legs chopped off who runs the marathon, you know, or rows the boat across the Atlantic and all this sort of nonsense. But I actually saw an advert in my own work inside newspaper where they had 3 teddy bears, okay, so we make this into a childish thing, and one's got a bad arm and one's got a bandage around his head and one's got a bad leg, and it was sort of give to the wounded. But more people are psychologically damaged than there are physically damaged, and those guys that are physically damaged are also psychologically damaged. You know, what is the thing that runs through all this? Psychological damage. Now, when you think about it, and everything the military does is contrived and not coincidence, the last thing you want to do is admit that actually war and the military is so dehumanising that it causes these problems. And what's the worst problem that we're seeing out of this? We're seeing more people take their own lives who've served in Iraq and Afghanistan than are killed by the enemy. I read a thing the other day, 22 guys in America kill themselves every day. In Britain, in 2012, I think something like 40 to 43 people were killed in Afghanistan, and 55 committed suicide. And that's a low estimate, because no one's keeping a record of all this, you know?
That's very true. I couldn't believe it. I was shocked. They said 22, is that every day?
Every day in the United States.
You think about this. 22, that's like 600 a month.
Is it that much? That's incredible.
You know, and if you think about that's like 7,000.
Maybe I got the numbers wrong. Maybe it's 22 a week.
It might be, but I still, no, I think it's...
I don't know. We need to check that out.
But
yeah,
we should, because it's like 7,000 a year, and that's more than supposedly were killed in the entire...
Yeah. Maybe it's less than that. Maybe it's 22 a week.
No,
I wouldn't want to get my figures wrong. You know,
honestly,
people should look into that. Yeah.
To be honest, I think I heard the same numbers, but I think we get the figures on that, but it's still shocking.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, twice as many, and it's coming home, and they're home now. They're no longer in the military. Why is this? There's, like you say, it's psychological. There's something wrong from the get-go to the get mode to the get out mode or whatever. But all of that is
22 a day.
how much?
22 a day.
It is 22 a day.
22 a day. Thank you.
Thanks, brother.
Jason. Yeah.
Well, that's shocking. You know,
Yeah.
that's just disgusting. You
So
know.
there's a real returning. That's, you know, there's a term called the chickens come home to roost. Well, that's the karma or whatever.
Yeah. Or you reap what you sow.
You reap what you sow. Well, this, to me, what we just heard is that. The chickens come home to roost. And these are young people, my God, 22 a day? What have we done to our people? And that's what we're not hearing about. So that's why we need to educate and get this out to the mainstream media.
Yeah.
So would you please say something about the mainstream media's part in their immorality of not covering this?
Well, you know, the mainstream media is immoral. Do you want to talk about this, Mike? I've spoken a lot, or I'm quite happy to carry on, but...
Yeah, I mean, with the mainstream media, for instance, the main news channels, there was an interesting documentary where they talked about the embedding of journalists into the battalions over there. So they're not actually giving a proper sort of, version of events. They're just giving a completely biased version, and that was running throughout the whole of Iraq and Afghanistan.
It's interesting because when we talk about the media, there's a big story that sort of reveals the true nature of the media, and that's the story of Julian Assange, editor of WikiLeaks.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this guy is not a classically trained journalist, and what's his business? His business is finding out the stuff that the government don't want us to know about and publishing it. Okay. Now, when he first did that, he did that with a few news organisations, The Guardian, Der Spiegel, and a few others around the world. And what happened? There was a huge response, mostly by the Americans and the British as well. They tortured Bradley Manning. They carried out a grand jury investigation into Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. What did the mainstream media do? They realise, hey, we've had this big party and we've all got drunk on all this information, but now Dad's come home the next morning and he's told us, look at the state of this house, you need to clean it up. And rather than continuing the party, they decided to jump back across the fence. And, you were talking about The Guardian earlier. The Guardian has been disgusting, despicable in its abandonment of Julian Assange. It has got to the point where almost once a week, a Guardian journalist will write an op-ed opinion piece in which Julian Assange is in some way attacked, So the media, that's sort of shown to me what side of the fence these people are on. The media are there to deny us the facts. They might give us a few tidbits here and now just to make us think that we're getting the true story, but they're part of the system.
Keep the light-hearted liberals happy.
Exactly. So that, the military, the financial system, the media, the politicians, they're all in it together, to cover up the truth and to keep us supporting these wars, keep us supporting this corrupt financial system. That's what it's really about.
The media, I think, is equally guilty of war crimes for putting the lies out there with all that when it began a long time ago. With Daddy Bush way back when in '91, but George the Jr. whatever, lying and the media running with it, literally promoting it and embedded like DNA. But they're literally in bed with these war...
In bed, exactly. They should change it from embedded to in bed with,
Bed, yeah, they're in bed with these war criminals. And promoting an unnecessary, unjust, and unjustifiable war.
And if you look at what happened in post-World War II, I'm pretty sure that the propaganda guys who spread the lies of the Nazi regime, they were found just as culpable as the guys who were, putting the Jews into the ovens.
Say something about that. Most of us don't know that. The propaganda dudes.
Yeah, the propaganda dudes in Nazi Germany, they were taken to Nuremberg, to the war crimes trials as well. It wasn't just the generals or the leaders of the SS. The political hierarchy was the one that was on trial, and part of that political hierarchy was the propagandists. Mm-hmm. So, if we were enlightened enough in 1945 or, post-World War II to notice that it's not just the guys pulling the trigger, mm-hmm. We're all responsible for this, right?
Okay.
Then, but we seem to have forgotten that now.
Okay. We need to know, to help us with the history, it helps us understand that these people are culpable and must be held accountable for their crimes of omission or promoting a war that was unjust. What personal practices for peace, beauty, and serenity do you practice? If you want to share any of your, what do you do to find your serenity?
On a personal level?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really feel any serenity or peacefulness, really. I feel driven to continue this work,
Okay.
Driven to expose militarism, if I can stop one kid or encourage one kid, not stop, encourage one kid not to join the military, that's a good thing.
Sow the seeds.
Sow the seeds, yeah.
And yourself?
Yeah, I mean, the same sort of thing. Been completely energised by the conference in Madison and the people we've met and some of the local people who did a lot of political stuff over there. Mm-hmm. On a personal level, I play bass in a punk band that helps me sort of center myself a bit. Yeah.
What's the name of your band, in case anybody...
Lemon Enema.
That's a great name, Lemon Enema. Is that available anywhere?
Not at the moment. We're still quite underground.
Oh, okay. So maybe...
We haven't made it to the States yet.
all right, maybe you could feed us some music one of these times. And,
Sure will.
we appreciate it. That's a great name. It sounds like the entire war, doesn't it? I mean, in a way. But then we'll talk about a few more things. We talked about Julian Assange. Bradley Manning. I want you to know that I have English ancestry. My grandmother's from Rundle is English, and also my grandmother Snowden is English.
Oh, wow.
I'm a Snowden from
You're a
England.
Snowden.
And so would you talk about my cousin, Edward Snowden?
Edward Snowden, what a guy. You know, I suppose after Bradley Manning released all that information and the US military put him through such torment, you know, 9 months or 7 months, however long it was, of solitary confinement and treatment amounting to torture, the longest pre-trial detention in US history, the way they carved up the case so it was impossible for him to win, and probably looking at now, I think that he's looking at a 90-year sentence, right? Now, they'd have been thinking, well, that's done the job. No one's going to leak any information like that again. And then a guy living in Hawaii, which is like a paradise, you know, with a beautiful girlfriend and a really good job, getting loads of money, he decides, you know what, this is wrong, you know, and I'm willing to throw this away. I'm willing to sacrifice this comfortable existence so that we can know the true nature of what's going on. And, you know, we all had our little suspicions about what was going on, but I don't think anyone realised the true extent of the surveillance of us, you know? Mm-hmm. And so it's an incredible thing. And I'm optimistic, you know. I suppose in this era, the act of one individual can have massive ramifications. You know, Bradley Manning, when he released that stuff, didn't realise that he'd influenced Mike Lyons, who would then resist the war in Afghanistan and become a member of Veterans for Peace, and then go into schools and try and encourage kids not to join the military, you know. And there will be thousands of repercussions from the actions of Manning, and there will be thousands and millions of repercussions of the actions of Snowden. And to be honest, Snowden knew what was happening. Snowden knew what was going to happen to him. At the minute, he's got asylum in Russia, but you know that's not a permanent position. But I think having heard Snowden speak and written about and read about him, you know, that guy is someone who's been willing to risk detention for the rest of his life so that we can know this. And I'm sure it won't be too long before there's another big leak. You know, who knows from where, who knows from who. But this is going to carry on happening.
I find that really, there's a term called being reified to the holy other, when you find another who is the same inspiration that you're seeking, and they see that in you. And I see that in you, both of you, found your own conscience and speaking out and quitting and going to jail and prison and so forth. And the same with Edward Snowden, his conscience, that's what he said. He became a CEO from the NSA, which is the Dark Lords, DARPA, and we find out that 70% of this is contracted out to private contractors for millions and millions and trillions of dollars. The same in Iraq with the 100,000, whatever you call them, the civilian or the private contractors over there. It's the same phenomenon in the military as it is with the NSA. And there's a swindle going on of all of us and our money, our tax money. They're swindling us right and left.
And then look at what economists would call it the opportunity cost. You know, because we spend so much money on this security state, this militarized industrial intelligence, you can keep going, corporate, financial state. We spend so much money on this that we can then not spend on this. So like in the United States, for example, you were telling me earlier, John, how much it costs for a kid to go to college, you know?
Right.
We could cover that.
Yeah, they're 30, 50,000. Each college student, when they graduate from college, they're at least 30,000, maybe 50,000 in debt. And that's going to be 10 years of their life.
But let's have a think about that, because nothing is coincidence. All of this is contrived, okay? Mm-hmm. If you put someone in debt for £30,000-40,000, that means they need to get a good job. That means they need to do as they're told. That means you don't want them challenging the system. So by loading people up with debt, you get these very sort of passive people who don't want to get in any trouble because they've got to pay this money back.
And someone was telling us the other day the same, because the healthcare over here as well, you know, you need to be working 35...
Say that again, please.
The healthcare over here, someone was telling us, you know, you need to be working 35, 40 hours a week to get decent healthcare. So again, it just keeps you and it stops you from going out. From
Yeah, yeah.
So you're literally gagged and muzzled.
yeah,
Like
they've
you're
got-
walking in fear, basically.
But it's okay because they give you a phone to play around with, you know?
Also, could you please connect this up with the drones and what's going on there, drone warfare?
Yeah, I mean, we've recently heard actually that your F-16 base is getting replaced by a drone control centre here in Iowa. You know,
Not on our watch. We're not going to have it.
so the military. I was talking about it a bit earlier. The military's got a problem. In the past, they relied on kids who had physical upbringing, you know, able to stay out in the cold and the wet and hump big packs and all this stuff. But you know, modern society is sedentary and it's an indoors lifestyle.
Right.
And
We're sitting on the couch.
we're sitting on the couch. But we're a lot more interactive with technology, and so these drones are sort of an ideal weapon system for the 21st century. The main solution that they provide is, even in Iraq and Afghanistan, where the body bags were a lot fewer, still those pictures of a coffin coming off the plane really strikes at the heart of the civilian population. Now, when you've got drones, you're not going to see any coffins coming off the plane. So there's not going to be that reaction from the people, you know, this sort of sentiment of regret or sadness at seeing soldiers coming back in body bags or soldiers coming back in coffins. So it takes that away. And also, I mean, on a tactical level, these things have got amazing capabilities. They can stay up in the air for hours, you know, and just watch things. And they can carry enormous weapons to attack things, you know.
Big brother, pure paranoia.
Yeah.
Right over your, it's in your psyche. I mean, if you
Yeah.
got somebody watching you all
Yeah, well, I read a report about, it was called Living Under the Drones, about life in Pakistan. And one of the effects of this drone warfare is that people are in fear their whole time. So just like we in the West are in fear of losing our job and then losing our house and losing our healthcare, people in Pakistan are in fear of their families being blown up. And, you know, imagine the psychological impact of living under that.
It's really...
But it's all about control, you know. These people don't want to do what we want them to do, so we put these drones above their head until they behave.
So give us some suggestions, your own personal message for peace. I know that maybe we've talked all about this. If you want to say anything you want, to feel like you're here and you want to just share whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty hard to come up with solutions. You know, people say, "Oh, what should we do? What should we do?" You know, but I think we need to recognise that militarism exists. Recognise that it pervades our society, and then ask ourselves on an individual basis, what am I going to do about that? You know? What am I going to do about that? What am I going to do about this militarism? And all come up with their own ideas about what we're going to do. But it can't be something you do once every 6 months or once every 2 years.
You know, I think when you were talking about this militarism stuff, I think if they take the N word and make it make the M
Yeah.
like the N word,
Yeah.
militarism like an M word like the N word, like just take that language down and decommission it from all this glory and fame and all this ramped up Yahoo, yeehaw stuff and make it for what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, so that would be my advice, is to recognise militarism and count it every day. Not just once every year at some big anti-war march, every day.
And wherever you find that language, deconstruct it.
And challenge people.
Challenge people.
Challenge
on the
people.
language. Like you did up at Madison on that word warrior. Say that again, that's really powerful.
Yeah, so this term warrior, there's Ed, you could say a bit about this. Warrior, you know, it's used to hide the true nature of what a soldier does. It implies something noble. It implies that it's somehow voluntary. You know, it implies that they're carrying out noble acts. And this word is used again and again in American society. Warrior this, warrior that.
It's washed over us.
It
every
washes
night
over
on
us.
the
And
tube.
and we need to stop it.
Like here comes the warrior home.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
People should read about what Nietzsche says about warriors
Say that. Oh, go ahead.
and soldiers, you know. And he says we've got too many soldiers. And a soldier is blind obedience, will carry out the crimes when they're told to, and has no free will. And that's what we've got. We've got soldiers. Let's not try and call them warriors. Warriors is someone who chooses the fight. And that might not be a violent fight, you know. But warrior is someone who chooses their cause and engages with that. We've got soldiers. Let's call them what they are. They're soldiers.
And yourself, do you would like to say anything about what your vision and just your message for peace?
Yeah, I mean, question everything. Think critically about things you read, things you see on television. Don't just accept that as the truth. You know, and I think the way to see an end to war in a short term is resistance from within the military. So anytime you find out about anything like that, support the people who resisted. In any ways you can, you know, use your talents. If you can draw pictures, make art that symbolises everything, because that can make a massive, powerful. If you're a writer, you know, write about it, blog about it, that sort of thing. Write songs about it.
Okay.
You know, get inspired. Don't just, as Ben said, just go on a march once a year and think that's it, job done.
And can I just add in there?
Sure.
You know, it's about celebrating. So what Mike's talking about, you know, this resistance from within the military, we need to celebrate that. It needs to be something that kids look up to and go, hey, this guy was in this inhuman system, this hierarchical system that kills and tortures, and he decided not to do it. So these need to be people we celebrate, you know.
We celebrate both of you here.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you very much, brother. I think we're really reified. Thank you so much. Thank you. God, I really appreciate it. Thank you, Jason, for doing a great job. It was brilliant. Thank you so
Thanks.
much. You satisfied?